Well, let me just start by saying hello, friends. Just like Elliot starts the show off, I'd like to start off with that. Hello, friends. We are starting a new series for the channel anyway, not a new series in general. It's Mr. Robot, the show that I consider to be the best story on television, the best planned out show of any show I've ever seen. Breaking Bad's pretty close. They probably are kind of neck and neck, but Breaking Bad is over. So right now, Mr. Robot is the best mapped out show on television. It's got the best music. It's got the greatest eyes of any actor on TV. And plus, it is the closest thing that I will get to a sequel to Fight Club, anything that is even similar to Fight Club. So I am really happy that with this show. A little background, I didn't even know about this show when it was coming out. It was already on for a while, and I happened to be listening to the Nerdist podcast with Chris Hardwick, and he had Rami Malek and Christian Slater on there, and they're talking about this show, and I was just by listening to them talk about it, I became hooked, and I found it, and ever since then, I could not get enough Mr. Robot. It is fan-fucking-tastic. So, we are starting at the very beginning with episode 1 of season 1. It's called hellofriend.mov. If you look on my channel, I did do some episodes of season 3, but the audio is bad, so we're just starting over from scratch. So anybody that's new to the show, congratulations, you're about to watch something great. If you're not new to the show, maybe you'll find these videos and think at least I'm mildly entertaining. So anyway, spoilers if you haven't seen it. So let's just jump right into the world of our very, what's the term they call it, about the narrator that you can't rely on. An unreliable narrator. I just said it in a roundabout way. So Elliot is this guy who, his whole life is hacking. He is a very, very lonely person. And it's probably one of the reasons why I like this show so much and identify with Elliot's character so much, because loneliness is something that I suffer from quite a bit. And part of, the great thing about making these videos is kind of even though I'm talking to myself right now, I'm kind of reaching out for a connection, because that's what Elliot is always looking for, is connections. And he, like myself, I have a hard time talking to people in real life. There's just something about that I identify with him. Like, you can be in a room full of people and feel alone. And it's crippling sometimes. So just like it is on the show for him, he'll break down and cry. I haven't had any breakdowns or anything like that, but I mean, I get it. People are like, how can you be lonely when you're around all these people? But if you have this problem, you know exactly what we're talking about. But to get into the story of this show, we are immediately talking about his feelings about the 1% of the people that really control this country. The ones who play God and didn't ask permission. And right there, right off the bat, that got me hooked, because fuck those guys. Because we all know they're there. I'm not going to get on a conspiracy rant and all this other crap, but we know, if you have any modicum of intelligence, you know what they're talking about. The guys behind the guys, the people to keep things rolling for themselves and keep us down where they want us. So anyway, we get to see what Elliot does in his spare time. So he's at this place called Ron's Coffee, and he sits right down with good old Ron, who is immediately, I love this guy's facial expressions. It's just great. He is just I don't even know if I can do it. What are you doing sitting next to me? What do you want? And Elliot just tells him, hey man, you got the best Wi-Fi. I've never seen, stuff that takes gigabytes. And he's like, but it's just too good. And that's what you'll find out about Elliot is, he's just sometimes too smart for his own good. And in this case, he just couldn't wrap his head around the fact that this place has such great internet. So he started doing research. And lo and behold, you find good old Ron with all his internet cafes has been running a kiddie porn place. And he gets the response that you would expect from this guy. First, it's get the fuck out of here. So it's kind of like starts going through the stages of like either an alcoholic or whatever. You do like bargaining and all this other stuff, like denial and anger and all this stuff. So he starts going through these different patterns. And I love Elliot just breaking it all down for him. And, it's, to us, you don't quite know what Elliot's getting at. Because he's talking to this guy with the greatest eyes, man. Again, his eyes say so much. And he's telling him, like, look, I'm weird, you're weird. Like, I understand, that we're different. You're different, I'm different. I mean, I don't jerk off to pictures of little kids, but... And this whole thing, you think he's just talking and monologuing and everything. And really all it is by the time they get to talking about money and this guy offering him money, you find out that Elliot was just stalling, that he normally doesn't get involved in these things. But he was afraid that the guy was going to run, so he just kept talking and waited for the cops to arrive. Because in the end, he's like, well, yeah, we're right about one, we're wrong about one thing. I don't give a shit about money. And that's the beginning of the show. It's the beginning of great intros to this show. Each week, you always wonder what the intro is going to look like. Some of my personal favorites, man, are like the one with from season 2, where the Phil Collins song's playing. Oh, I love that one so much. But you never know, and they're always unique and always cool. So anyway, we start to get to know. I've got this because, man, for an hour-long episode, I don't know how they jam-packed all this into it. And I've seen this episode like 4 times, but I still can't always keep it all up here. So yeah, Elliot works at a place called AllSafe, where it's just like a security company, a computer security company that keeps conglomerates protected. And of course, like, it's a perfect job for him, but he hates corporations. He doesn't really like people. And he works there with his friend Angela. And they got this boss named Gideon, who's a nice guy, but, he's like, again, he's just wound real tight. And Angela has a boyfriend that is basically every kind of doofy frat boy, Maroon 5 loving, whatever. Like, there's a lot of kind of stereotypes in this show. And he just happens to be the kind that I don't like. The bro. Let's call him the bro guy. Hey, bro. And Elliot doesn't like him. And he's just like, so like, he doesn't like me, man. I can't have that kind of negativity in my life. Like, fuck this guy. But he also has a therapist that he goes to. And Krista. And I love this scene so much. Because it really starts to give you insight into Elliot. Kind of like when he's talking to Angela and she's asking him, where were you? Why didn't you go to my birthday? And he zones out. And he's like thinking about that, last night when he could have gone to the birthday. And he's just standing outside watching it from afar, having his loneliness, his desire to be with people, but his crippling fear of it at the same time, keeping him away from it. And then she has to snap him out of it. Like, hey, man, I hate it when you do that. Like, I'm talking to you and you're like thinking about something else. Even though he was thinking about what she was talking about, but he was just so far out thinking about it that he wasn't paying attention. And so he does the same thing with Krista. And talking about his anger and why does he hate society so much and fuck society. And he starts going through another monologue about, social media and being consumers and a lot of this kind of Fight Club-esque kind of talk that he goes through, and he just starts snapping. But it's all in his head. Like, he's checked out again. He is, and she's like, you're not talking. You're kind of looking, but you're thinking, but you're not speaking. And again, it's like he holds all this stuff in. And again, I can relate. I hold a lot of emotions in. I hold a lot of thoughts back. I hold a lot of my feelings back. Again, like in this situation, this is kind of how I get doing these videos is sometimes how I feel I get some of that off my back, even though I'm still just talking to a camera and hopefully to people that watch these, but I'm not saying any of this to, people in front of me. So it's just something that I can kind of relate to as far as the show and the character goes. But with his character talking to Krista, it also talks about how he, without the lack of connection and the desire to connect with people, he does what he does, and that's hack people. He hacks everyone. He'll hack the person, like he'll hack Krista, the therapist, and then through Krista, the therapist, he'll hack the people that she's dating and those people, and just on and on and on until he just gets all this information. And he does this, he says he knows people, and he knows people so well because he always looks for the worst in them. And I love that. I love that line, because it's like, again, I kind of jump to that conclusion a lot of times myself, where you see the worst in people sometimes, a lot more than you do see the good. And through this, he finds out that this guy that she's dating is like a scumbag. So he doesn't trust him, so he starts looking into him. And he ends up like seeing him on the street and like hacking his phone, like asking for his phone because he needs to make a phone call, and he like gets his information from this guy. And it's like he can't help himself. He's just so addicted to the hack. He also has problems with his delusions when he hides. So we know that he's got this past and history of self-delusions and seeing things that aren't there. Because he talks about like seeing the men in black following him around. It's also where we first see Christian Slater's character on the subway, talking about, interesting times or something like that, or big things. And it's like, you first see Christian Slater, you're like, what is he doing here? But then we get to where he self-medicates. He takes morphine. I have never done morphine. I've never snorted anything, but apparently it seems to work for him temporarily. I like he's got this regimen to how he doesn't become a junkie, but then he also talks about how, he has other things just in case he starts getting like withdrawal. So I don't know if you're not addicted, how do you go through withdrawal? But maybe that's just me. So this is where we're introduced to Shayla, Frankie Shaw's character, who I love. Frankie Shaw, I love her so much. So she's kind of like the, possible love interest. And that's the thing, like he takes drugs with her, they have sex, and yet this is one of those contradictory things, but maybe, you can still have sex with somebody and feel separate from them, I guess, feel detached. It's a little strange, but I mean, she likes him, and he could like her, but he still can't get there, even though they seem to, have sex probably occasionally. But this is where Angela calls, and Allsafe is getting hacked. So Elliot has to go in there and try to figure out what's going on. They're getting hacked hard. Their whole system is being attacked from all sides. And I'm not even going to pretend to understand all the technical jargon. But as the guy that tried to fix things says, it's like the system's being attacked by a serial rapist with a giant dick. They very rightly so kind of go like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ, could you maybe not tone it down a second? Well, anyway, long story short, Elliot figures out what they got to do, which is go to the server farm and shut it down there. So Gideon and Elliot take the plane out to the place that has a server farm, and eventually Elliot is able to stop the hack any further from the companies losing any more money. In doing so, though, he starts to try to find out who's been doing this. And he does this without the knowledge of Gideon or anybody else. And he finds the name F Society. And he's like, oh, okay, that's just too close to being, what I was talking about with Krista. He's saying fuck society. This just can't be a coincidence. Starts digging a little more, finds messages that were meant for him. And instead of deleting it, they ask him to keep it there. And even though he feels like he should delete it, he feels like he can't. He is compelled to not delete this. And so he doesn't. Which leads to a kind of awkward flight back where Gideon decides to tell him he's gay and that feels like he can talk to Elliot. But at least Gideon is trying, like other people try with Elliot, to get him to open up, to get him to share and be part of the world. Even Gideon even goes so far as to tell him that he knows that he wishes, that Elliot secretly wishes that, All Safe would fall apart because, he says it's because of the shirts they make him wear, but Elliot does at least like the gesture that Gideon tries. Like, he knows Gideon's a good guy. So after all this, and they get back, this is where Elliot is on the train again, and he meets Mr. Robot again for the first time. It's because he has the little badge that says Mr. Robot in his jacket, and he asks him to come with him to Coney Island. He has this great little speech in the subway terminal talking about how his dad was a thief. He says the whole world steals, everybody steals. There's people, there's wealthy, there's poor, and in the middle there's always somebody getting bamboozled. And I steal and I don't get caught because that's my little contract with the world. And that if you catch me, I'll go to jail, but if you can't catch me, then I earned that stolen money. And I just kind of like it. And then when he says he got caught, he lost his respect for him. So he goes out to Coney Island with Mr. Robot and starts to meet the gang that were responsible for the hack, which is portrayed by Carly Chaikin and two other people that I can't remember their names right now. But this is just like his introduction into that world of F society that is being led by Mr. Robot. They've got more missions going on. They explain how, kind of everybody just comes and goes and works on the project as they can. And then Elliot leaves, and he's kind of like, been given this like thing to go after Terry Colby, the head of E Corp. And I should say that way back, not too long in the episode, when E Corp comes to their place, this is where we meet Terrell Willig, a guy who surprises Elliot by like kind of thinking exactly what Elliot is thinking at one point when they're talking about computer systems and stuff, and it kind of takes him aback. Terrell Willig, though, is a fucking creepy looking dude. But more on that later. Let's make sure we get everything in here. So they also start to talk about how E Corp, by taking E Corp down, you could get rid of the debt and the credit card debt and everybody's debt that they have, because E Corp has this like certain amount of percentage of the world's finances and credit and all this stuff that people owe money for. And that if they can figure out how to take this place down, it'd be, like just redistribute things, make the world like an even more even playing field, bringing it to like what it is, more like a Fight Club situation. And then we also have, so he ends up going into the system and trying to frame Terry Colby for the hack. Because Terry Colby comes to their offices and he's like a dick to Angela. You can just tell this guy doesn't give a shit. And Elliot had this one folder out, this like packet. And then when Angela got sent out of the room, he switched packets and brought this one out. Terrell Willig noticed that. So that plays out in a little bit. So I can't remember what would have been in that original packet, but what they give the FBI, what he gives the FBI is the stuff that frames Terry Colby for the hack. And then during all this, this is where Elliot digs up all the dirt on the guy that the therapist is dating, and he finds out that this guy's like a serial like philanderer. And so he confronts him on the street. I mean, this guy's like cheating on his wife with 7 women, like sees escorts, all this stuff. And so he blackmails him into breaking up with his therapist and steals his dog, or takes his dog. You know, you can call it whatever you want. Now, technically, not technically, hacking people is illegal. Blackmail is illegal. Morally, this guy's a piece of shit. So I don't really feel bad for what Elliot's doing to this guy. He is messing with a whole bunch of people's emotions, and you can tell that when Elliot forces him to tell Krista what he's done the next day, she is completely like devastated by the knowledge that this guy tells her. But he also takes the dog, and so he gets a little bit more companionship. But just when you think that the FBI hasn't moved on Terry Colby, they finally do, and you get this kind of cool moment for half a second where Elliot feels like it's happening. It's all happening. He's in Times Square, and it's kind of interesting how Times Square like shows up a lot at like important big moments in Elliot's life, or in this situation over the period of the show. So in this, he's like, yes, but immediately he is asked to get into the car by these like muscly security guys who take him to Terrell Wellick. And that's where we end the episode. So that's it. It's an incredible first episode. There's a lot of stuff in here, so I'm sure I missed stuff. There's a lot of great dialogue. Some of the best writing on TV is on this show. So anyway, I hope to get better at doing episodes of Mr. Robot. This one was hard to do because of how much was in there. And it's also 11:39 at night. I've been making videos all day, and I just kind of wanted to get one more done, and that was Mr. Robot, just so that I wouldn't put it off for any longer. So going forward, I hopefully will be better at making videos for Mr. Robot. So if you do like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know how I can get better at it. I probably just need a script almost for these ones, because there is always so much going on that it is so easy to miss stuff. Even with a stupid tablet that kind of gives me a recap, stuff is still kind of flying by me. So anyway, this is Rob for Smirking Gun Reviews saying we will see you on the next episode, and have a great night. Bye.